Hello, social psychology AP students. This is my first screencast, so bear with me. I am teaching today social psychology, chapter 18. I hope my voice isn't too squeaky. I hope the mic works, and I hope I come across clear. I am sure all of you will let me know if I don't. So here we go. So the topic today is social psychology. It is chapter 18. It's the last chapter of the book. It's sort of the macroist, largest view of psychology that we can get. And I thought we'd start here because there are some very interesting topics in this chapter. So first of all, we have the outline. So here's the chapter outline. It's got three major subtopics: social thinking, and then social influence, and then social relations. And they all have their own subtopics, and we'll get into those individually as we move on. So first, let's define social psychology. Scientifically studies how we think about, influence, and relate to one another. Okay? It is, in more simple terms, how the mind works and changes when we're around other people. We're going to do a lot of studying this year on just the brain itself of any individual. This chapter is on how we operate in groups of two or more. And there are changes, and they can be quite interesting, humorous, and scary even. So social thinking involves thinking about others, especially when they engage in doing things that are unexpected. For instance, you have a worker who's absent a lot, somebody who just doesn't show up to work a lot, and they work for you, and you're not sure what's going on here. There seems to be more than usual absenteeism. Okay. You have to start asking yourself, well, why is this? Is this illness, laziness, or is something wrong at work? Is it too stressful here? These are things you need to think about before you just perhaps accuse a worker of doing any of them. You need to approach them probably with a more thoughtful approach than just accusations. As well as the horror of 9/11. Was it the work of crazed, evil people or some ordinary people who were corrupted by life events? Well, there are people out there who do say that the 9/11 attackers were evil. They somehow, were born into this role. I tend to disagree. I don't really think anybody's evil. I definitely don't condone what they did, but at the same time, I think it was more life circumstances. They were people in I guess you could say the wrong place at the wrong time, perhaps learning the wrong values as to how to get what they want, and we as a country paid for it. So just some more ideas on social thinking. All right, then we're going to get into attributing behavior to persons or to situations. And the big guy here is Fritz Heider. You don't really need to memorize who he is, but roughly in 1958, he comes up with this attribution theory. Suggests that we have a tendency to give causal explanations for someone's behavior, often by crediting either the situation or the person's disposition. So he's saying when we're looking for why somebody did something, obviously we're going to attribute it to either, hey, they're mean people, or hey, they were in a tough situation, they were under a lot of stress, and they reacted inappropriately in a negative situation. So you can also have the same thing for positive. But that's his theory, attribution theory. So some examples here. A teacher may wonder whether a child's hostility reflects an aggressive personality or his reaction to stress or abuse. We don't know. I mean, it happens to me all the time. I get kids more often when they're freshmen who just angry. They're angry at me. They're angry at the world, and I don't know why. And I would say you have some teachers who take it personally, but I try not to, because I don't know what's going on at home. And the idea that somehow I should think this kid's world, if it's just a mess at home, then they're going to come to my class for an hour and they should just suddenly see, rainbows and lollipops and everything's going to be great. That's just unrealistic. That's not how the world works. And so there could be some the stress, the situation at home could be causing a problem. And then you probably would react differently if you thought, hey, you're just a bad kid. Okay, there are no bad kids. Okay, just kids who are guided in bad situations, into bad situations. Okay, all right. So dispositions are enduring personality traits. So if Joe is a quiet, shy, and introverted child, he is likely to be that in a number of situations. So you got to remember, dispositions are things that are not going to change based on a situation. We all have our own dispositions, and that's not always why we may react one way or the other. The situation can have a much more dramatic effect, and I'll explain when we move on. All right, now we're going to talk about the tendency to overestimate the impact of personal disposition and underestimate the impact of the situations in analyzing the behaviors of others that leads to the fundamental attribution error. So, we tend to think that people's behavior is much more due to, deep-seated genetic wiring, when in reality the situation matters. And the example here is we see Joe as a quiet, shy, and introverted most of the time. But with friends, he is very talkative, loud, and extroverted. And I get that all the time because I'm always talking to some kids in class, and I'll say, "Wow, you're such a quiet kid," and then I always hear the comment, "But you haven't seen me around my friends." And there's a perfect example. You all may change your behavior just from my class, just because you're in my class, and I don't know, maybe you want to learn, so you're quieter, or maybe I scare you, so you're quieter. I don't know why I'd scare you. I don't, whatever. But when you get near your friends in a comfortable situation, you're not that way at all, especially probably around your family who knows you the best. Okay? So that's the fundamental attribution error. And another example, here's when we've been in this situation when you're driving, you see somebody swerving in front of you. You have two ways to go. Could it be the situation, or could it be that this person has a bad disposition? Okay, so if you think it's situation, you might think, hey, maybe they're sick. Oh, watch out for this person. I'm going to give them a wide berth. Go around them. Or in the other case, a dispositional problem where hey, what a jerk. Thinks they own the road. Okay, and you speed up and you drive by them and you give them a stern look, or maybe some friendly finger gestures, which I've never done. So anyway, you can see how that would change the reaction of even the person in the car that is doing the swerving. One way you just go by them and mind your own business. The other way, you end up with road rage issues, and then you're on the nightly news. So your attitude is a belief and feeling that predisposes a person to respond in a particular way to objects or other people and events. So in other words, if you have heard information about someone you're gonna meet, and you've heard negative things, that information could actually affect your attitude as to how well you may like this person. Even though you've never met them and they've never done anything wrong to you, you may be all primed to not like them, or vice versa. You may be primed to like them, okay? So you have to be careful with that information that you get when you have not had your own experience yet with a human being, okay? So you could actually create a self-fulfilling prophecy where you meet someone and you're just so hypersensitive to anything that may be construed as a criticism of you or a negative comment about you or your life or whatever, that you're just ready to dislike them. And of course, that attitude is not necessarily the best to go through life with, because you tend to look at everything, the glass half full all the time. And of course, your attitudes can affect action. Our attitudes predict our behaviors imperfectly, because other factors, including the external situation, also influence behavior, which we've gone over in the previous slides. For instance, Democratic leaders supported Bush's attack on Iraq under public pressure. However, they had their private reservations. And we're talking about after 9/11, of course, a lot of people felt that going into Afghanistan after the Taliban and the people we had narrowed it down to who had actually attacked us, there was a lot of support for that. That made sense to a lot of people. Then you had this sort of turn of events where now that we're over here, President Bush came out and said we need to go into Iraq, and they have weapons of mass destruction was the big political push there. But you had a lot of people asking, wait a minute, as far as anybody can tell, he had nothing to do with the 9/11 attacks. We're over in Afghanistan for the 9/11 attacks. Why are we, changing our direction? And there were questions that people had. And basically what this point of this is that there were many politicians who did not agree with George Bush at the time, but because of the situation, because of their attitudes towards being shocked that we had been attacked on our soil for the first time in a very, very long time, if I guess you could say ever really, by an outside force, they kept their mouths shut. And there was a lot of tension in the air. There was not, I shouldn't say tension, there was a lot of people that felt if you don't support what the president does now, then you're not really American. And that was really, you can think of a politician, it might be, kind of political suicide there. So there was a lot of probably mouths that were kept shut that shouldn't have been kept shut. So attitudes can affect action. Not only do people stand for what they believe in, they start believing in what they stand for. So be careful what you say about yourself and how you think about yourself. You can do good things with this. My mother always used to tell me, you can become what you think about yourself. I had the opportunity to constantly move, growing up in the military, and wherever I moved to next, I always had the chance to start over. And if I decided I didn't like some part of my personality in some other part of the world, I just started working on changing that. And lo and behold, my mother was very much accurate. My mind controlled who I was. So, and the example here, and I don't know why necessarily we have a picture of two people hugging on a soccer field, but I think the point is you might have somebody you're not really great friends with, don't even like them that much, but you're on a team with them, and you have common goals, and you work, and you sweat, and you cry together, and then as the season goes on, and maybe you have success and you achieve goals and you have maybe ultimate success and you do super wonderful things together, suddenly what was something that you really didn't like about them, you're more willing to overlook and it doesn't bother you as much. Your attitude is changing because you are now with them in something. You're cooperating with them. So keep that in mind. It goes both ways, positive and negative. All right, then we have small requests, large requests concepts. Foot in the door phenomenon. The tendency for people who have first agreed to a small request to comply later with a larger request. It's a very common marketing technique for business, but it's also used in a lot of other parts of life. For instance, in the Korean War, this is a long time ago, before my time even, Chinese communists solicited cooperation from U.S. Army prisoners of war by asking them to carry out small errands. Then, when these people would comply with these small errands, they would start to make the errands bigger and bigger and more important. They were trying to create a workforce from the prisoners, and as well probably trying to get information from them. And so they would constantly try to start small, work bigger. Okay, and then stores will do the same thing where they want you to come in for a small sale. But then they're always looking to say, hey, we have this small TV on sale. People come in for it. And then they're always saying, but look at what we have over here, this great big huge TV. You probably like that better, huh? They got their foot in the door with you. If you get into their store, they feel like they have a shot at